All right, today we're diving into the world of real estate to uncover an economic illusion. And this isn't just some number on a spreadsheet. It's so powerful that it can literally decide whether a building gets sold or if it's burned to the ground for profit. Yeah, really.
So, let's start with a really simple question, or at least it seems simple. If a government adds a 20% tax to a property, you'd think the price just goes up by 20%. I mean, that's just basic math, right? Well, what if I told you that's wrong? Not just a little bit wrong, but that the real number points to a hidden economic force that's completely changing the game?
And this isn't just some, academic thought experiment. Getting this number wrong is at the very heart of some major financial fraud. We're talking about situations where it's actually more profitable for someone to insure a building for way more than it's worth and then burn it down than it is to just sell it. So yeah, finding the true price, it's not just interesting, it's absolutely crucial.
Okay, so to get to the bottom of this mystery, researchers launched this massive data investigation. Let's take a look at how they started cracking the code.
So, the scene of the crime, if you will, is the commercial real estate market in St. Petersburg, Russia. And the evidence file? It's huge. We're talking around 65,000 property listings and sales records, all gathered over more than a year. This is the mountain of data our detectives had to sift through.
But here's the catch. This data is a total mess. You've got info coming from all over the place. Online listings, official records. It's just full of gaps, inconsistencies, you name it. So the first big challenge was just figuring out how to find that one true price signal that's buried underneath all of that noise.
So to cut through all that static, the researchers didn't just rely on one tool. No, they brought in a whole team of powerful AI detectives, and each one has its own special way of looking at the evidence. Let's meet the lineup.
First up, you've got the veteran. Every good detective team needs one, right? This one's called hedonic regression. It's the classic by-the-book statistical model. I mean, this thing has been used for decades to figure out property values. You can think of it as our baseline, the old-school method that the new guys have to prove they can beat. Next, we bring in the forensics team, two models called Random Forest and XGBoost. Now, these guys don't just look at the problem one way. Instead, they create hundreds of little decision trees. Think of them like mini detectives that all work together and vote on the final answer. It's this teamwork that lets them spot really complex patterns that the old veteran would just walk right past.
And finally, every team needs a specialist. This is the MLP neural network. Honestly, this is the heavy hitter. Its whole design is inspired by the human brain, so it's built to find the deepest, most subtle connections in all that data. We're talking about the kind of clues that are totally invisible to everyone else.
So, the big question, which one of our detectives actually cracked the case? Well, the numbers don't lie. Our old-school veteran, hedonic regression, had an error rate of almost 20%. Not great. The forensics team, Random Forest and XGBoost, they did a lot better. But look at this. The MLP neural network was just in a completely different league, with an error rate of just over 8%. So now we have our lead detective. This is the tool we can trust to give us the real answers.
Okay, so we found our star detective. Now it's time to put it on the main case. Let's go back to that original question. What is the true impact of that big tax, the value added tax, or VAT? All right, let's start by looking at office sales. Now remember, the official government tax rate here is 20%. So with our super smart AI detective on the case, what do you think the real impact on the final price actually is? Take a guess.
The answer it came back with? 11.06%. Let that sink in. Not 20. It's not even close. This means that somehow the market is making almost half of that tax just vanish before it ever shows up on the final price tag.
Yeah, you can see it right here. This chart just lays bare that huge gap between the official tax rate and what's actually happening in the real world. It's like there are these invisible market forces at play, forcing the seller and the buyer to split the cost of the tax. And the craziest part? It's all happening behind the scenes, in a way you'd never see on any official document.
And this wasn't just a one-off thing for office spaces. No, the pattern is everywhere. For retail properties, that 20% tax only adds about 10.8% to the price. For warehouse sales, it's a little more, around 13.5%. Even for warehouse rentals, where it gets closest, it's still only 17%. The takeaway here is clear. The sticker price of the tax is never, ever the true price.
But wait, the story doesn't stop there.
Just when you think you've got it figured out, our AI detectives found something else. Another, even more subtle rule that was hiding deep inside the market data. This is where we get a really surprising twist.
See, all those numbers we just looked at, those are just averages. So that raises a new question, right? Does that 20% tax have the exact same effect on, say, a small, cheap warehouse as it does on a massive, super premium office tower?
Well, the answer is a big, fat no. Our neural network dug deeper and found this hidden economic rule. The tax's impact isn't a flat rate. It actually scales with the price of the property. The more expensive the building is, the more of that 20% tax actually makes it into the final price.
Think of it like this. For cheaper, lower-priced properties, the sellers and the market basically have to eat a bigger slice of that tax pie. But when you get to the really high-end, premium stuff, the sellers have way more leverage, and they can pass almost the entire tax bill straight to the buyer. So it's not a flat rate at all, it's a sliding scale.
Okay, so what's the big takeaway here? Why does uncovering this whole tax illusion actually matter in the real world, beyond just being a cool data puzzle? Well, let's break down what we figured out. First, the sticker price of a tax is almost never its true economic cost. Second, markets are these incredibly complex things that swallow up costs in ways we can't easily see. Third, and this is the cool part, powerful AI can basically act as a decoder ring for these hidden economic rules. And finally, knowing this stuff is critical for everything from creating fairer tax policies to, yes, fighting the exact kind of fraud that leads people to burn buildings down.
When you boil it all down, this investigation shows that even something we think is simple, like a tax, has this whole hidden reality under the surface. And if AI can pull back the curtain on that, it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other economic truths that we all just accept are actually just illusions, waiting for the right detective to come along and crack the case?